Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Exciting stream today on a Friday because I'm joined by none other than Bob Ziroll. Yay!
Yay, hi.
It's been an exciting week at Scrimba. Bob Ziroll's Learn React Router 6 course has dropped 8 hours, I believe, of routery goodness. So we'll be hearing all about that, and it's free, which is very nice. So here's the link. Should you wish to go and sign up, I'm sure you've all got some burning questions for Bob in the meantime. Thank you all for dropping on by. Super cool to see everyone here. Yeah, if you've got anything you want to ask about this course, or maybe another of Bob's courses, let me know. I'll do my best to ask questions. But for now, let's start with the basics. What is React Router and what does it do?
Yeah, so React Router or router is a way to conditionally render pages, basically, if you dig deep down into it. But basically, like if you're making a React app, oftentimes any website that you've ever been to probably has more than one page. Most of them have more than one page. And so React Router is a great way to have a React app that can also just conditionally render which page is being displayed, which means that it all happens on the front end. I talk a little bit about it in the course, but I don't know if it's fair to say older sites, but in traditionally, you have a multi-page application. So you try to go to like the /about route, right? You're on a website, example.com, you click on the about link, and traditionally that'll make a full refresh of the page, and the server will serve up a brand new HTML document. But with React Router and single page applications, all of that code already exists on your client browser when you load up the site. And so you click about, and it just immediately, instantly, without any flicker or usually without any delay, just loads the new page, and it makes the page feel very snappy and fast. So that's basically what it does.
Super cool. The examples given on the course page are ones like, example.com/about/contact us and so on. They're all sort of preloaded by the sound of it, making everything work nice and fast. So yeah, super cool. Good reason to use it by the sounds of it. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a bit about the course. What can people expect from this course? I mean, obviously, learn React Router 6. Can you give us a bit of detail about what you do in the course and the teaching approach?
Yeah, so all of our courses on Scrimba, we like to call it the Scrimba 2.0 pedagogy, because back in the day, some other instructors would try to make use of the Scrimba platform, but almost treat it, probably out of habit, like a YouTube video, where there's maybe a little bit of interactivity, but we've really doubled down on having challenges, quizzes, some that I like to call thought experiments, and projects that we actually require the students to build alongside of us. So that's the teaching approach that I take in this course, as we, all the instructors on Scrimba do. And so we build this pretty fun app called Van Life throughout the 8-hour course, and just keep adding new features to it. And this time around, I don't require students to do much CSS. And so I kind of handle that for them, just so that they can stay focused on React Router. And yeah, we build the Van Life app, and as you saw in the different sections up above, we first, of course, start from the beginning and talk about just the basics, how to set it up, how to make a few different routes. Then we go into nested routes, which is when you have more than, like if you were at the /company page, but then you click on someone's picture and it takes you to a detailed view of that person. So you'd have like /company/Leanne /company/Bob. And so that's the idea of a nested route. search parameters, like when you have a list of things that you need to filter down or to sort in a certain way, we cover those. Different links and active link styling, so that there's a clear indication which route you're on. And then the course kind of takes a 90-degree turn, and we cover the new data layer APIs in React Router. It was released in 6.4, which they basically stole over from Remix, which it's the same people who created React Router and Remix. So yeah, then we start talking about loaders and how cool they are, and actions. I cover protected routes, and we deal with forms, but the React Router version of forms, so it's a little bit different. And I actually, like, later on when we want to look at a little demo, I can show you how that's actually pretty nice. And then we touch on deferred data, and yeah, it starts bleeding into the React 18 ecosystem of Suspense, React Suspense, which is cool. We get a taste of it. We don't dive super deep into it, but yeah, it's fun, and it's the new stuff that they introduced in the 6.4 version of React Router is great.
Super cool. I really like the project you build in the course. I would use this app. So maybe one day Scrimba student will make it for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. One thing that did catch my eye in the learnings is this 404 page / splat roots.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what a splat root is?
Sure. I think it comes from the fact that it uses an asterisk, and the asterisk kind of looks like a splat. It's the term exists elsewhere too. It's not specific to React Router, but it's a catch-all route. So the idea with the 404 page is if you try to go to / blah 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 on the website and you haven't set that up as a route, then by default React Router has no idea what to do with it, so it serves up a blank page. There's just nothing to display. And so you use a splat route, which uses the asterisk, saying basically if nothing else, if none of my other routes match the URL, then display this component. And you create a dedicated 404 component. You can do fun, cute little things with 404 pages, or just anything that gives a visual indication to the user that they're not supposed to be there, that that's not a real page.
Yeah, or they found an amazing Easter egg sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. Some people are asking, and this is relating to Rajni's question, whether this will be in your advanced React course and or the front-end career path. Can you shed some light on what are the plans for this course?
Yeah, it's perhaps a little bit confusing. The reason this course came about is because I'm currently re-recording my advanced React course, and so part of one of the sections in that course is about React Router, which frankly it's not an advanced topic. It's something that someone who has just finished my beginner React course could jump into. Honestly, it could probably even be included in the beginner React course because it's pretty necessary for building a meaningful React app. Anyway, so I was recording this section, and it just got longer and longer and longer. And then they released the data layer APIs in 6.4, and I wanted to include those because there's no, as far as I know, there's no like real course out there about them. There's YouTube videos here and there, but so anyway, the course got longer. It also wasn't really an advanced topic, so we said let's release it as its own course, and then in the advanced React course, it's still going to be there, but it's going to be about half of this. In that course, I'm not going to touch on the data layer APIs because they're not strictly necessary. They're so new that not that many people are using them in the wild, although I think eventually they will be. And so, yeah, so about half of this new course that we're talking about will be section 2 of the new advanced React course, which I'll be coming back to working on. So yeah, And then I'm happy to answer this question about resources for advanced React too. Scrimba, like obviously I have a course and I'm going to be coming out with another course. But there's lots of great resources out there, free and paid. I'm friends with Kent C. Dodds. He's got a great Epic React course that is pretty pricey, but it's because he's very professional and he has lots of experience. And he's a good teacher. And then I know Josh W. Como is currently like in pre-signups for the Joy of React, which is another course that he has. I don't know the price on that one, but and I think he's not going to be coming out with more stuff until the spring or summer. So maybe it'll be a race. Maybe I'll see if I can finish the advanced React course before his.
Lovely. So there's some resources to keep your eye out for. Thank you for that tip. On the topic of this, other courses you might want to do, or this one, when should people start learning React Router? By that, I mean, what do they need to know first?
Yeah, I talk about this in the intro to the course. React. You need to know React, but then in order to know React, I always recommend you have a solid foundation in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript first. So I guess the longer answer would be HTML, CSS, JavaScript with some experience, not just like a cursory knowledge, and then React, at least the basics of React. And then you can jump into this. I can think of one topic that I teach in this course that's a bit more, or requires a bit more of an advanced understanding of React. But for the most part, it's like you wouldn't even have to necessarily finish my entire 12-hour free React course in order to take this one.
Yeah, and that is, so get your teeth into this, and then somewhere along the way, you'll be ready to start this router course. And Jay-Z Design is asking, is there a free JS course you would recommend so that I can know enough JS to get into React? What do you reckon, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to recommend Scrimba first. Actually, I don't know. Is our Learn JavaScript course free, or is it part of the career path? Yeah. So yeah, Learn JavaScript with Per Borgen.
Yeah, it's a very good course. It helped me a lot with understanding JavaScript. Yeah. Any other recommendations?
Yeah. So after you finish this, do all the challenges in solo projects. If you are still feeling shaky, the one that I have really liked recommending is Wes Boss's JavaScript 30. I particularly like that it's very project driven and challenge based, but also has a built-in mechanism for having spaced learning and repetition. So, well, more spaced learning. It's called JavaScript 30 because it's 30 days of challenges. You're supposed to just do one a day and then kind of wait till the next day. And so, yeah, it's a great approach to teaching, having the spaced learning, and it's good content.
Nice, thank you for that. Question here: is there a plan to make a Redux course? I think there might already be some, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah, the old Advanced React course has a Redux section. My understanding is that it's fairly outdated. Redux has since updated its API, and I don't personally know how different it is now than it used to be. I think it's fairly different. There's no current plan to make an updated Redux course. That said, I do get asked that question quite a bit. I don't know if that's because beginners feel like they need to learn Redux because they've heard of it, or if people are still using Redux widely. My frame of reference is in the US, and Redux has kind of waned a bit in popularity. That said, maybe worldwide it is like still extremely popular like it was 4 years ago. So I'm not feeling super excited to make a Redux course because in my point of reference, it's like not that popular of a library here. But I don't know, maybe I could be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, well, let us know. Check out job ads in your area, and if all of them are asking for Redux, maybe we need to do it.
Correct me.
Zaid Marie is wondering, does React Router work like Next Router?
Yeah, so under the hood, I bet it's a very similar set of principles. But Next, because Next uses file-based routing, which is really nice. I mean, I would say most frameworks these days are using file-based routing, which just means instead of manually creating your route definitions under the hood, the framework is automatically looking for any file that you have in, let's say, a directory called pages. And if you make an about.ts or JSX or whatever file there, then it will just register a new route. And simply by making about.js, you have a /about route associated with your application. So under the hood, they probably work the same. I don't have a lot of experience with Next. I have more experience with Remix, which uses React Router. I mean, React Router is like one of the core features of Remix. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's got very similar APIs, hooks for grabbing the location and navigation tools and redirection components and stuff like that.
Nice. I hope that helps. Zaid. Ranji wants to know, how should we style components in React? Pure CSS or a framework in which CSS framework is used or something else? What's your preference, Bob?
I really want to learn more and get into Tailwind just because it's popular. I like, maybe not having to leave my file. I feel a little bit conflicted with it because if you have really intense styling on your site, then your markup can start to look pretty crazy. I have used styled components pretty extensively, and I really like styled components. It's very capable. But yeah, I think in Scrimba, I just do pure CSS because I don't want to conflate like what is React Router and what is styled components or Tailwind. But yeah, I think like I'm interested in checking out Tailwind more. And my go-to is usually just styled components.
Yeah, we usually advise in Scrimba to get the basics of CSS down because then you'll be able to use any other kind of styling library or framework or whatever that's demanded of you in a job. So if you've got the background in CSS, it's not going to be too difficult to pick anything else up. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Redupem is wondering, is Vite better than Webpack for React?
Yes. Yes, it is.
What's the difference for those who aren't familiar with one or both of these?
Yeah. So, I mean, at its core, they both are bundlers. They take your complicated React code, which is spread across multiple files, and they minify it and bundle it up into like a single HTML, CSS, JavaScript file that can be sent to the browser. It's mostly for the benefit of developers, I would say, because you can not just have to shove everything into a single JavaScript file, but you can develop the way you want, and then Webpack or Vite will do the work for you. The difference between those two, I mean, my understanding, my like full comprehension of bundlers is relatively limited. Vite uses a tool called ESBuild, which is written in, what is it, Rust or Go or something. It's a very, very fast native language. So Vite is just extremely fast. And like Create React app, I believe, uses Webpack under the hood. If you've ever spun up a new Create React app, on a fast computer with a fast network, it's still going to take you 20 to 60 seconds. Whereas Vite will take the matter of, I don't know, it's something like 5 seconds to get an app set up. And then the hot module reloading is really quick, and everything else is just great about Vite. So I always recommend Vite now. We have switched all the internal runnings of Scrimba, courses or React stuff to Vite. So if you download the zip of a newer React course, project, like a Scrim, then it'll include a vite config, and you just run it, and it's really easy and very fast.
Nice. Brilliant stuff. Let's move on now. I think you've got a little demo of React Router for us. Let's take a look at that. Keep the questions coming in. There'll be more Q&As later, but for now, Bob's going to show us some of what React Router can do. Let me know when you're ready for your screen to go live.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
You'll have to tell me when I'm live because I can't see StreamYard anymore.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's there now.
Okay. So this is one of the lessons that uses or is preparing to use the actions from the new data layer APIs. And so the reason I like this lesson so much is because forms in React are not great. There's kind of a funny thing where in React we talk about how much we like being declarative instead of imperative, where meaning we like get to basically use an API that was built by someone else to accomplish a task that's relatively complex without having to go step by step and tell the computer exactly what to do. For example, React is declarative because we just use JSX, which looks a lot like HTML elements, and under the hood, it does all of the like selects or get element by ID and like create element and append to the DOM and diffing of the tree differences and everything. It does all that for us, and we just tell it declaratively what to do. But when it comes to forms, there's kind of this funny thing where we say like, okay, first of all, forms have their own built-in management or state management system. So when you fill out an HTML form, it's able to track the value of the inputs, and you can get those values. But the first thing that we have done for a very long time in not just React, but most frameworks, is say just prevent the default from happening when you submit this page. And there's good reasons for that, but I'm just going to kind of scrub through this. What I end up talking about here is an import from React Router DOM called capital F form. I can bump this up too. I bet that's really small.
Nice.
Is this capital F form, and this modifies how a native form element works in HTML. And it allows us to get rid of quite a bit of boilerplate code that we're imperatively handling with React forms. So, so you can see this is the reason I like this, is because when we use capital F form, we get to delete our controlled component values. We get to delete our on-change handlers. So I can simplify that. And I'm no longer going to, you can see I deleted my handle submit on my form. So I get to delete my handle change and handle submit functions that I don't need anymore. I'm not imperatively controlling the components and maintaining state of every input on the form anymore. And so I get to delete my state, and I'm left with a very basic form using React Router's capital F form. And eventually in a lesson that comes soon after this, I will export a function called action. This will have a request, and I can get, for example, the email, or no, let's see, I have to do form data equals, and then you say request dot form data, and then I can say const email equals form data dot get email. And this is based on the name property from the inputs down below. But the reason this is cool is because this form data object is using the native MDN form data API constructor. And so this .get is nothing specific to React Router or React. It's specific to the web. And that's kind of the MO for the folks at Remix and React Router is coming, or I mean, the reason Remix is called Remix is because they're taking the native platform that already exists and is already very accessible. It works on every browser, and whatnot. And then they remix in some modern day, techniques in order to make it so that we can still use the native, the native documentation or the native platform. You'll hear remix people say all the time, like, you just need to, or you'll spend half of your time on MDN looking at how things work on the web, as opposed to on the remix docs looking at how things work in remix, because it just encourages you to use the native platform. There's obviously more to this, and that's what the upcoming lessons after this go into. Where are we? React Router form component. So setting up the action function and adding it to, and then, the params object and getting form data. This is, what I just showed. Anyway, it's really cool. This is really exciting. Maybe I'm just nerding out over being able to delete code when I no longer need it. But yeah.
Yeah, I love deleting code and deleting stuff in general. Right? So big fun, but that looks super cool and very useful. Thank you for the quick demo there. You touched on this a little bit earlier. But just to clarify, can you use React without React Router? Or are they kind of, you need both?
I mean, obviously you can. The original course, or my introductory course, doesn't go into React Router, and we build projects, but all of those projects exist just in a single view. There's no, routing to another page. There's no like about route or contact route or products route or anything more complex than just having a single view, single page, basically a toy app. If you're building like a calculator or something that only needs a single view, then it's fine to just use React. You don't necessarily have to use router. But and that's great for learning. But if you're building a website, like if you're going to build a blog, you have multiple routes. If you're building I guess if you're building a portfolio, then maybe you just have a single page that you scroll down in your portfolio and it's got all the information there. You might even have links at the top and you click it and all it does is scroll you down the page. But if you want to have multiple pages that you transition to, then yeah, you have to use React Router. The only exception to that is if you're also using a framework like Remix, then you don't manually install React Router. It just has a router built in that you use. So
Nice. That's clear things up. Mohammed is wondering, what's your next course you're working on?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, this React Router 6 course is going to be a section in my new Advanced React course. And so now that this is done, I'm going back to my Advanced React course and continuing on that. So I already have a full section on reusability that's already recorded. I don't know if it's edited. I can't remember. It's been so long. But there's a whole section on reusability, and then there will be a section on React Router. And then I'll have a whole section on performance. And as far as I know, that's all it's going to be. All of these topics on the old Advanced React course are going to be included likely in one of those sections. So here, there's a section on React hooks, because I now teach that in the introductory course as the default way to handle state and effects and whatnot in React. There's not going to be a dedicated section for it because it is the default way. Mm-hmm. Context, I now teach in my reusability section, because it's a really useful tool when you're making compound components and reusable libraries, or component libraries, I should say. And yeah, so that just leaves reusability, performance, and React Router. And then there will be a capstone project and a solo project associated with it too.
Oh, exciting. Will it be a new capstone project or a revamped version of this one?
I haven't thought about it too much yet. I'm not entirely certain. I'll have to figure that out. The one that's there is okay, but I think it could be better. So yeah, maybe it'll be better. There's an old version of like a Netflix clone on Scrimba. There was an old course that used to be part of the front end career path. And so I had the thought to like do my own Netflix clone as part of the capstone project. But yeah, I have more work to do to figure that out for sure.
Exciting stuff. Looking forward to that. Chrome Chef is on the Scrimba bootcamp right now. And finding forms tricky. Struggle is creating a form object component with a function that creates a duplicate form and updates the individual forms. Wow, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, well, I hope you have lots of success with that, Chrome Chef. Let us know how it goes. When is Scrimba going back end? Hopefully this year. Yes, hopefully with the release of the next version of the site, we'll be able to offer backend courses. Are you planning on teaching some of those backend courses, Bob?
I would love to. It's been a while since I have written any meaningful backend code, so I would have some learning and catching up to do. But yeah, I when I taught at a boot camp, I loved when we got into Express and started being able to build our own REST APIs. It really kind of opens the world where you can save your own data instead of always having to, work through somebody else. I guess in the meantime, there's great solutions that don't necessarily require you to write your own backend. Like if you're using Firebase, you actually make your database calls from the front end, and you can save directly to your database, handle authentication, and all sorts of cool backend as a service, companies out there that help you avoid it. That said, yeah, we're super excited to do backend courses. I think once it's enabled or once it's supported on Scrimba, probably all the teachers are going to be clamoring to create some courses for backend.
Nice. Fernando's wondering if you're currently studying the Advanced React course, are there any parts where you should seek out other resources or perhaps wait for the refreshed version rather than studying the ones that are there? What's your advice on that, Bob? Bearing in mind you're currently refreshing the course.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mentioned a couple of resources that have advanced React topics in them. React Router was outdated, and so that's being refreshed. In fact, I wonder if we can just pop it. No, we probably can't just pop in this part of the course because it has some other prerequisites. I honestly don't know. I think the biggest change will be removing some topics. Like there's if you've taken the free React course, you don't need to go through a whole section on hooks, for example. And so other than things like the way that you do React DOM.render has changed in React 18 versus version 16, which I was using when I recorded that course. I think quite a bit of it is still going to be helpful to go through. I teach higher order components, but people don't really use higher order components anymore. So that's not super helpful. But I also teach render props, and render props are useful. And I'm reteaching that in this in the new version that I'm making. So I would say yes and no. It wouldn't hurt to go through the current advanced React course, just bearing in mind that there's going to be a couple differences. And I think the other thing is like a lot of it is based on the first half of it probably is based on class-based components. I created kind of a stopgap solution, like a Band-Aid in the meantime, which is my little 1 hour introduction to class-based components in the meantime. But yeah, I think it's fine to do it. You'll get a little extra exposure to it's admittedly a bit older version of React with classes as the primary driver, but there's also going to be lots of gems in there that will help clarify things. And then hopefully in the next, month or two or three, I'll have the advanced React course done, and then it won't be a problem anymore.
Lovely. Yes. If you fancy learning about class components, here's the course Bob mentioned, little 1 hour speed through of class components. Mr. Salou is wondering, do you cover context API? Is that just React context? I've got too many tabs open. Is that this section or is that something different?
Yeah, so in the advanced course, I teach React context, the old one and the new one. The React router course includes a very small section that uses context under the hood. It uses outlet context, but I don't teach context in the React Router 6 course. But in the old and the new advanced React course, I do teach context, yes.
Good to know. Also, question here, which version of React Router DOM is used throughout the course?
Yeah, so it's I mean the base one is 6. As you can see, when I was recording it, 6.4.3 was the most recent. And in typical fashion, like I started recording, I got a good portion of the way through the course, and in the meantime, the team had updated a bunch of very minor things, but incrementing the minor version. So now it's at like 6.7 or 6.8, which makes it sound like 6.4 is pretty outdated, but it's not. I mean, there's not any. Maybe I can't say that definitively, but nothing is broken. It still works perfectly because it's not a major version release. It's not React Router 7, which with my luck, they'll release in like a month. So,
this is our eternal problem at Scrimba.
Yeah, I'll have to re-record the entire 8-hour course.
It's still worth learning because you are going to come across legacy code probably more often than new code. So, yeah.
Sure.
This is the React Router docs, which I appreciate the nice styling.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Bob, if you've got any advice on using this docs or any cool little tricks or things you found while building.
So the docs are in kind of a strange in-between state between their recommendations before 6.4 and their recommendations after 6.4. So for example, if you go to the main concepts on the left there, getting started main concepts. Yep. And then scroll down a little bit until you see some route definitions. Not the actual code, not this kind of definition. Let's see. Yeah, here. No, sorry. Keep going. So you see like a route component. Oh, your screen is small. That's why there's there's usually another submenu on the right that.
Oh, really?
Anyway, there you go. Like if you go to locations or matching.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Maybe go to matching or no, defining routes. There it is. Defining routes. That's yes. This. So if you look here, it's all component-based routes in the main concepts. This is a great document. I spent a lot of time here as I was preparing topics for the course. But then if you go over to the tutorial on the left, getting started tutorial, and go down to like adding a router, maybe, or nested routes somewhere. Okay, you can see there on line 9, like they're using a completely different method of creating route definitions, which is an array of objects. I cover this in the course. It's not that big of a deal, but my point is the docs are a bit disjointed right now, where like some of it will cover the new methods using the data routers, which requires you to create a router this way. Well, it doesn't require you to. It's a long story. There's a lot going on in my head right now. But I really like the main concepts. I think the main concepts are great. And then as you start using it and getting more in depth, you can go to the examples where they have a bunch of examples on StackBlitz to actually parse through the code. And so, yeah, main concepts is great. The tutorial is also great. Just keep in mind that it uses the data routers and just has a completely different approach to routing than what you might be used to. And my course goes into this as well. Like it covers those topics. It just does it after teaching the kind of the traditional way.
That is definitely good to know, because I've been looking at docs before, not React Router, it was something else, I don't remember what. Couldn't figure out why whatever it said wasn't working, and then it was because it was a different version to the one that I was using.
Oh,
So
bummer. Yeah.
massively. Something to look out for. And yeah, good heads up. Anything else we should know about these docs?
No. I mean, yeah, I don't think so.
Well, only that if you get your screen small, you're losing a menu, which is what I was doing. So that, yes, watch out for that as well. A general question from Hollow. What are indications that I'm job ready and I should apply for a job?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would go listen to the Scrimba podcast. That's like there's so much good advice on there from recruiters and hiring managers, experienced developers, as well as Scrimba students who have gotten jobs, and lots of stories of people saying like, I didn't think I was ready, but I decided to start applying anyway before I thought I was ready, and I started getting interviews. And so, yeah, I highly recommend the Scrimba podcast. It truly is not just because I'm, paid by Scrimba. I can't think offhand of a better resource for people learning to, who are transitioning careers and trying to get a job in tech. That said, like to actually answer the question, I think you will, when you're a beginner, you will almost never feel like you're ready to apply for jobs. Sometimes, especially in the market currently, which is a bit, I don't want to say hostile, but it's not leaning toward junior developers as much. You kind of just have to take a chance. You don't have to meet every job description, but you do have to do, I guess there's two things. You have to prepare yourself by having a portfolio of projects and a great resume and LinkedIn. And you have to practice interviewing. So, doing those things, but also just being a genuine, I guess, decent person, it makes a big difference. When you go in for an interview, more often, every hiring manager that I've spoken with has mentioned like they are usually more interested in making sure that you're going to be a good fit with the company, based on your personality, as opposed to like what languages and frameworks you already know. If they're hiring a junior, they know they're going to have to spend time and resources training you. And so they need to know that you are going to be able to take that training and those resources and then produce something with them. So if you go in, just thinking that like you're there for a paycheck, you're probably not going to be motivated enough to do a good job and to be a good fit at the company. So going in thinking like I really want to provide resource or value to this company, then you're likely going to do better. I always tell people it's kind of an awkward comparison or analogy, but interviewing for jobs is like going on dates, where you're not just there to beg them to give you a job and to pay money. The same way you don't go on a date just to beg the person to date you. You want to make sure that the fit works both ways. And the reason that's beneficial, I think, is that it helps the applicant, you, presumably the people watching this, feel confident in their approach to the company. Just knowing that you have something valuable to offer them, which may not be current or past experience, it may be the potential for great experience going forward. So, so as far as indications that you're job ready, I would say like if you've gone through the Scrimba front end career path, then just start applying. If you've never touched web development, like probably don't start applying. Start learning. But it doesn't hurt to apply and then always follow up if you don't get the job, which will happen very often, and just say, what can I like? How can I improve? And is there a chance that I could apply again sometime in the future? And I think that impresses a lot of recruiters or hiring managers at companies to know, like, I'm willing to improve and go forward. This may not have been the right time for me, but more you'll be more likely to be top of mind when a position does come up that could be more well suited for a junior.
Yeah, definitely. We quite often get asked on Scrimba, oh, I applied 6 months ago, got rejected. Now they've got an opening. Can I reapply? And yeah, definitely yes. I think it's a great idea to do that because, well, one, you know their recruitment process, so that's not going to be alien. Maybe you've already been to the office for an interview, so that's, one less stress of finding the place. And two, you don't know how close you were to getting that job. You might have been down to the last two, and then someone just picked you at the post.
Mm-hmm.
And as Bob just said, if they've met you before or just seen your resume before, had an email from you before, then you're going to be higher up on the list than however many other applicants they know nothing about. So great tip there.
Yeah, and having been on the hiring side, sometimes what happens is you're sifting through, dozens or hundreds of applicants, and they don't usually do it to be rude or mean. If they don't respond right away, or if they just say, I'm sorry, this isn't going to be a good fit. Like you said, it could have very well been that you were top 2 or top 3. And in the process of saying like, well, now I have to send an email out to like 30 people, it just seemed like you were dismissed. But, if you follow up and show that you're interested, then you're more likely to be on the top of their mind the next time a position opens.
That's right. Especially if you've asked, what is it that I lacked that meant I didn't get the job? How can I improve my chances next time? And you've actually actioned that. Then I think that would be really impressive for the next time you apply. Xavier's wondering, any resources for local coding events? I'm local to Bob. Oh, got a lot of snow at the moment then.
Yeah, it's a lot of snow in Utah. Meetup.com is, at least in the US, I don't know what presence it has internationally, but meetup.com is great. Utah has a great tech scene. And so, yeah, I host the local Remix meetup. Xavier, if you're in Utah and you want to join, you're more than welcome to. Just go to meetup.com and check out Remix. We have one coming up in a week from yesterday, I think. So I think it's the first Thursday of the month. And then there's Utah.js, and every, especially larger cities, tend to have great communities of JavaScript learners. I think if you were to just search JavaScript, outside of Meetup, I don't really know, because I only ever use Meetup for actual local coding events. But maybe Slack or Discord might have some kind of local chapter or server that's local to you. And so checking those out is great. And if you, I don't know, you might even have the ability to start your own. If in your area there isn't one, you might have like one person come, or no people come. Sometimes it might be a slow build. But yeah, we've had students when I worked at a boot camp who started their own, like went back to where, the state that they were from in the United States, and started their own. So it's always something you can do.
Meetup.com, is that the same Meetup that has an app?
Yeah, I assume so, yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen in my area on the Meetup app, there's a few coding get-togethers. So yeah, second that. Mr. Saloon is a big fan of your teaching style. Are you planning on teaching us TypeScript and or NextJS someday?
Yes. Yeah, I would really like to. I actually started a TypeScript course at one point, preparing the curriculum for it. But as I was using TypeScript on Scrimba, the recorded version does not have IntelliSense pop-ups, which sounds like a minor nitpick, but it's a pretty important part of using TypeScript. And so I wanted to wait until there was better IntelliSense support inside of Scrimba and inside of the recorded scrims before I actually do TypeScript. Anya Kubo has a pretty good introduction to TypeScript on Scrimba. So you just have to search for TypeScript in the courses page. And so that's a good start. But if you watch the course, you can tell like she was limited by Scrimba's platform, where she has to say, if you take your mouse and hover over the red squiggly, then you'll see what I'm talking about. Like I'm going to do it, but it doesn't show up in the recording. And so it's not like it's not a perfect user experience. And I want to wait for that before TypeScript. And then Next.js requires backend support, which we don't currently have. But honestly, I think once we do support backend and Next is working inside of Scrimba, that will likely be the very first course that we make that has anything to do with backend, because it's so requested that I think people would absolutely love the Next.js core. I think it would be extremely popular on Scrimba.
Yes, next course. You heard it here first. Looking forward to that. Have we already had this question, or was it a similar question? I think it was a similar question. Does React Router work the same way as Redux?
Yeah, I don't think we've done this one. No, they're just two different libraries. Their purpose is two completely different things. Redux is state management. So when you have some kind of application state, especially that which needs to live in a bunch of different components or different locations on your app. For example, imagine you log in and you need your username to show up like in the nav bar and maybe somewhere else on the page. That's something that Redux is intended to handle. Whereas React Router is all about client-side routing and being able to add like pages or views to your site. So they're just you use both of them or neither of them or just one of them. Because they accomplish different things. It's hard to compare them. Apples and oranges.
Nice. Can you tell us a bit about data layer APIs? You mentioned that you cover these in the course. I have a very fuzzy understanding of what that actually is, and what's involved, and what's it needed for in the van life app.
Yeah, actually, while you're on there, could you go up to the section that says loaders and something else?
Yeah.
Loaders and errors, and then loaders intro. And maybe scrub back to that's showing. Let's go back. Maybe it's before that. Is that the first one?
I think this is the first one.
Oh, okay. Anyway, if you watch this lesson, I talk a bit about it. Yes, I'll talk about it. It's great. Again, it's inspired by Remix, which you can see in this screenshot here. And the idea is that kind of in the beginning days of React, before there were some awesome libraries like TanStack Query, React Query, or SWR, I think, these kind of fetching alternatives that also do some state management. People would often they would transition to a route. So like, let's say you're going to the products route on your page. And then inside of a use effect, which you can see in this sample code, you would kick off a fetch request to get the data for your, or let's use the van life app, to get the data for the list of vans. And the issue with that is you have to make sure that you handle the use cases inside of your UI of this component, of this route. What would happen if the data never comes back or returns an error? So you have an error state like on line 9. You also don't necessarily want to transition to this route and then just have it be a blank page with nothing visually happening for a while. And so you put things like a loading state, and then you're manually tracking error state, loading state, setting those back and forth. It becomes fairly imperative within the ecosystem of React, at least. And all of that is because you can get to this page before the data gets there and then kick off the data. In the data layer APIs, React Router has made it so that you can delay the transition to your new route. So when you click on the Vans link, it before it actually replaces the content on the page, it kicks off the request. And so you make the request, and then when the request comes back, then it takes that data and it puts it into the Vans route, and you can just assume that the data is synchronously there. So there's no longer error handling, because there's another mechanism for handling errors using an error element in your route definitions. But most importantly, I would say you don't have to be tracking your loading state, because it will always be loaded if this route gets loaded, because of just the slight timing change of saying, I'm going to kick off the fetch request before I come to this route. And then when I get to this route, I have the data there.
Super cool. Wow. You can find out more about that in the loaders and errors section of the course. 6 sections we have in this course, so covering everything you could possibly need to know about React Router. A couple more quick fire questions before we finish up. It's almost been an hour already. Hi Bob, I'm currently learning your React course on Scrimba. Love your teaching style. How about a React Native course anytime soon?
Yeah, sorry, my son is outside crying, so I'm muting myself.
Oh.
But I'm not very experienced with React Native, so I don't think I'll be doing a React Native course anytime soon, mostly because there is so much content still for me to do in the regular React ecosystem, the React for Web. Eventually, I would love to. I have played with it before. I've worked on some projects where I've tried to provide some consultation, but because I'm pretty inexperienced with it, and there's enough of a learning curve, and there's other things that I need to record first, it probably won't be from me anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yes. And finally, Abdul, as someone who's finished your amazing basic React course, should I go for the React Router course before or after the React Advanced course?
Yeah, I would recommend, I have been recommending to people, because I've gotten this question a lot, that people, if they finish the basic course, then do this new React Router course first. And then when you go into the advanced course, you'll have a prior knowledge that, okay, I can skip the React Router portion of the advanced course, or at least you can take it, but just know that there's going to be some API differences. And hopefully that buys myself some time to finish the advanced React course before people get to it. So it's kind of crackerjack timing, but and I don't know how long it's going to take me, but yeah.
Good stuff. So the order is learn React, and then hit the router, and then we will have Bob's refreshed advanced React course ready for you. Yes. Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining me, Bob. It's been very nice to talk all about your brilliant new course. Any closing thoughts for React Router learners?
No, just my same advice for everything, which is to do all of the challenges, answer all the quiz questions, actually dive into the course. If there's one thing that I could, hopefully have people take away, is to shed maybe the standard that you have learned in your class, like school growing up, which is that everything is based on a grade, and if you get a good grade, that you learned it. And those two things are not correlated with each other necessarily. So, so just, dive in, ask questions when you have questions. Don't short sell yourself. Meaning don't just get a tiny bit stuck in something and be like, well, I'll just watch him do it. Challenge yourself, push yourself, reach out to the community. It'll take 10 times longer to formulate your question and post it to Discord and whatnot, but your learning will be so much stronger in the end. That I just, do the same thing with this course. I think our most successful students are those that just dive in and do all the work. The easiest way to learn it is the hard way. So yeah, do it that way.
Absolutely. Yes, and don't forget to check out Bob's free React Router 6 course. And I'll be back sometime next week, coding with Michael, so keep an eye on Scrimba's YouTube page. Well, that's all we've got time for, but thanks a lot for coming, and see you next time, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.